Well, cool. So tell me, let's start off with your story. How did you get to where you're at today?
Well, when I was 6, no, just kidding. But actually, genuinely, I have wanted to be a business owner and entrepreneur since I was a very little kid. It was like
Cool.
always this spirit inside of me, and I do have it coming from both sides in my DNA. So I guess maybe it's something to do with that.
Is-
But I was always the kid that was like starting lemonade stands and like starting a babysitting service and a gopher service and dog walking and all of the things like
Wow.
marketing before marketing was cool.
Yeah.
Um, but it took me a really, really long time to actually like open my first business. I
Okay.
actually have worked, I think I've worked 42 jobs, and
Wow.
two of those are businesses.
I'm impressed.
So I worked a lot for other people and I didn't like it. And I just kept on doing it again and again and again. Well, the
As
breaking
my
point.
as my other friend Emily puts it, genetically unemployable.
Yes, it totally that is exactly it. So the breaking point was like in 2014. I had actually worked for this company that sold non-toxic bedding
Okay.
and organic mattresses. And I was
Nice.
like, well, I can do that, but I can do it better. So I broke free of the job I was working at, which was a chiropractor's office, and
Okay.
I opened this retail shop with my husband.
Mhm.
And we did that for 4.5 years. And there was some writing on the wall that was letting us know that this industry probably wasn't going the way that we wanted it to. And furthermore, I was just like incredibly unhappy. Like I basically built this thing that I really did not like
Okay.
and I really did not want to be doing anymore. So we had to have an honest conversation first and foremost with ourselves and say,
Mhm.
like, what do we want to do? And then I had to have a conversation and say, what do I want to do now?
Yeah.
Because I went to school for health education. And
Okay.
so I wasn't using that degree at all. I was
It's
not
yeah,
following that
but,
path at all.
I mean, maybe you could somehow do it with the organic mattress thing, but okay, yeah.
That's how I made the connection. So I had to really look at like, what are my skills? And not just what are my skills, but what do I really love doing right now in my business? And what do I really not love doing? And a lot of the things that just kept on coming up again and again and again were that I just really loved doing the marketing pieces.
Okay.
And so I had other like shop owners. It was like a little plaza that we had our
Mhm.
shop. And all these other shop owners and just like friends that I had connected with, they would ask me to do things like their newsletter. They'd be like, I love your newsletter. Can you do mine? I love your blogs. Can you do mine? I love your social media. Can you do mine? I was like, yes, yes, yes. I just kept saying yes. By the time I closed the store, I basically was like doing two things at once. By the
Okay.
time I closed that store, I had 13 paying clients.
Mm.
And so like retainer clients. And I was doing everything from website, not just writing, but also website building. I was
Okay.
posting on their social media. I would go to their business and take photos of them if they asked me to. Like I was doing all the things. So it took me from there, that was 2019. It took
Okay.
me from there like another 2 years, I would say, to really hone in on like, nope, it's just the writing, recognizing that, you know what, also people will just pay for the writing. Like they don't
Mhm.
need you to do all these other things. I
Yeah.
mean, they do need those things done, but I'm
Yeah.
not the one to do them.
Yeah. Yeah. There's
So,
other people that do that well, and there's the content is
exactly.
really the key to it all.
So I really started just focusing in more and more and more and more. And I will say, like, when I went all in on writing, it
Mhm.
was like the scariest thing in my life. Like, I was like, oh my God, I'm announcing that I'm a writer. And like, what if people say, no, you've been a terrible writer all this time and you just haven't known it? It was horrifying.
Mhm.
But it was the best decision I have ever made because before that, I built the same exact prison that I had in the mattress store for myself
Nice.
in this business where I was doing everything. Like, I had days I would lay on my office floor and just stare at the ceiling and be like, I hate my life. And yeah, so I
And this
feel
is
like
really bad because you owned a mattress store, so you could have
yes,
laid on a mattress and you were
it's
laying
the
on the floor.
it's the best part of the story, honestly. Like those beds were comfortable. I was
Yeah.
like, nope, floor.
Yeah.
So yeah, so basically it was a process to get to that point. And I will say that it is well worth the personal work that you go through. It's well worth the pain that you go through to be so clear on what you want to be doing because it is very freeing on the other side when you figure it out.
Yeah, that's awesome. What so you shifted into writing as a career. Did you specialize in like just retail, or were you kind of expanding out, trying a lot of different industries?
At first, I was pretty much working with like anyone and
Yeah.
everyone. And I'll say this, I still serve a broad audience of people.
Okay.
My niche, just like it's kind of accidental, but I
Mhm.
work with tons of people in the home trades. So like
Interesting.
builders, architects, interior designers,
Yep.
painters, like all because they're out there, they're busy, they have amazing things to do and
Yeah.
say and show,
And they're
and they don't have
awful writers.
yeah, and they don't have time to do it themselves,
Yeah.
nor desire, nor do they know how.
Yeah.
So that's a niche of mine. But I will say that I've learned about niching. It's
Mhm.
more for me on the type of person that I'm working with, like
Okay.
and
Interesting.
the reciprocity we have in our relationship
Mhm.
more than it is the industry. So
Okay.
I've written for I think 114 different industries.
Okay. Wow.
But now I'm realizing like it really is all about like the individual for me that
Mm.
the traits exist in.
Yeah. Well, and it's having that avatar of, well, this is my perfect client. Now
Yeah.
you just find more of them
Yeah,
at that point.
exactly.
What do you find is the traits of a client that you really like to work with?
Well, it's the same. It's similar to what I have in the traits of a friend,
Okay.
actually. So my number one is like respect. So we
Mhm.
both have a mutual respect for each other, meaning I have to respect what they do best, and they have to respect what I do best.
Okay.
The other one is like trust. So
Mhm.
like I need them to trust me with what I'm gonna deliver on.
Okay.
I love like a collaborative, it is a collaboration and you have to kind of be like a little bit invested in it when you bring on a service provider. So, and then the other one I think is just like it's hard to put your finger on this, but it's just delight. Like I
Mm.
just want to like the person and I want them to really like me. And so
Yeah.
if those boxes are checked, chances are it's going to be a fantastic
Yeah. You're
project.
gonna work well together, and
Yeah.
yeah, which I mean, it's just basically kind of building a friendship. I mean, it's never going to be a friendship, but I mean, it's building that kind of same relationship you have with a friend. Which
Yeah.
those are my favorite kind of clients as well. I'm typically not the one that's like, oh, let's go out and have dinner and all that stuff, because that's my private life and my business life. But yeah, I want to still have that feeling where I know everything about your family and everything else, so that I understand who you are as a person.
And to your point, you can still have your private life and be
Yeah,
introverted and build great relationships with your clients, So,
absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely. Introverts go deep. That's the
Yes.
important part. So you started, and of course, right in time for COVID. That popped up a few years later. Did you find that, especially in your business, I would assume, kind of picked up because more people were going online at that point?
Yeah, at that time, I was working actually I was doing a lot of social content, and so a
Okay,
lot of people really wanted to ramp up their social stuff.
sure.
So I mean, it did kind of work in my favor at that time. But I'll say this more importantly about COVID, I am so glad that I didn't have my retail shop at that time because I think that would have just taken me from an already low place, like
Mhm.
emotionally, and just sunk me. I don't know if I would have been able to go through it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
From having a brick and mortar, I will tell you it was a punch in the face. But
Yeah.
the other part, I mean, the best part about it was it slowed me down.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I was blowing and going 70, 80 hour weeks, 7 days a week, 16 hours a day. And all of a sudden, I didn't have clients coming in. So we started doing stuff on Zoom in the finance business. And from that point on, I wasn't jackassing around town, going to client appointment to a client appointment. It was, hey, we got on a Zoom at whatever time, and I could work double the amount of appointments in one time. And gotta start leaving at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, coming in at 9. Life is good. And we just never adapt. We never changed after COVID.
Yeah.
We still do 9 to 4, and 9 to noon on Fridays.
I think that the other thing, like it kind of brought together certain people. Like we were able to meet on Zoom, and you were able to meet
Yeah.
and connect all over the world, and it
Yeah.
was just like a given that that was what was going to happen.
Yeah.
So it did actually kind of like in a weird way open up a lot of our worlds. You know,
Yeah.
like we all were like, oh, we can talk to people in Australia, which we could have done. We could have done that
You
before.
always could have done before. Yeah, you just didn't have that opportunity before. I mean, we
Exactly.
have a huge contingent on this show of Australians because I had a whole bunch of guests that were friends of mine that were here in the States from Australia. And so their natural audience. So, probably 20% of the audience is in Australia. And I've had
Interesting.
these wonderful conversations. And I always said, I mean, Australians are just Texans with a funny accent. So, I mean, we're very similar overall, but I mean, I wouldn't have known that. I mean, I always loved Australians, but until I really truly got to know them and, hang out with them in person here, but then, spend time talking to them and, the podcast over the years. I mean, I've interviewed people in, I think probably 30 different countries, if not more,
Wow, that's
and so
amazing.
I would have never met these people. No chance in hell that I would have met these people besides that. So, I mean, I think it's just, we live in a cool world. So
Yeah.
how did the business continue to adapt? So you were doing a little bit more social stuff. How is it adapted today?
I do sometimes social things, but it's
Okay.
usually related to a bigger concept. So like really I'm helping people to create an entire message that is cohesive
Nice.
from their website copy to their business card to their LinkedIn profile to their social media. Like I want it to all be the same message that we're delivering through all of these platforms. So a lot of the work I do is like really foundational, like let's
Mhm.
build the brand voice, right, from the bottom up,
Yeah.
and then give it the places we want it to go and what it looks like in those different places. So it's a lot of website copy, it's a lot of blog copy, and then it's kind of like creating the strategy to like get the eyeballs to the website, get them
Mhm.
to the blogs, right? So it's a lot of that. I think the social, it at the time, it was also a lot easier than social media is right now.
Mhm.
Like I'm pretty it's not that I'm like wary of social media because I think it's helpful for all of us to have like some presence there,
Mhm.
but it's just like getting the algorithm to do what you want is a
Yeah.
lot harder now, and it was a lot easier then. So I'll say that. So I don't that's not like a
Well, and
focus
I
on
think
what I'm
there's just
working
so
on.
much noise
Yeah.
today, and I think
Yeah.
that happened as a result of COVID too. I mean, more
Mhm.
people got online. You have a lot of people who really suck at it. You have a lot of people who are, in your face, buy this, buy this, buy this. I'm seeing a trend, and I don't know if you're seeing this. I'm seeing a trend, and it's some of the people I really respect in the industry, and I'm doing this myself, of trying to take people out of that world and get them into my own community.
Yeah.
So I've been developing a community for this show and kind of the financial world that surrounds me onto one platform where we build a community and people can consume all of my content on that platform versus having to go over to YouTube here and play, Facebook here and blah 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 blah. And really using social media as a vehicle to get people to come to my community.
Yeah.
So if you want to hang out in
That's
Jeff's
brilliant.
world, this is where Jeff's world is. If you want the good stuff, it's here, not all over the place.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. What now, as a business owner, this was a big change for you to shift gears. What do you think would you attribute your success to? Because it's tough. Going into a totally new business is tough. What helped you to be successful?
I would say that relationship building and
Okay.
collaboration and customer service. So
Okay.
those are like kind of those are like my three foundations of my business, like building really, really strong relationships. It's funny, actually, someone on my newsletter, I think it was last year, she's been on my newsletter list since I had the mattress store. And she
Nice.
just now, 10 years later, started working with me as a client. So
Yep.
it's because part of it is because of relationship building. Like people do know that I am a human and they can like reach out
Mhm.
to me and we can actually connect. Secondly, I do a lot of collaboration, like for example, what you and I are doing right now. Like
Yeah.
I'm here, it's a win-win-win, right? Like
Mhm.
people are listening, they're winning, you and I are both winning. It's like a multiply kind of situation.
Sure.
So that's my second one. And then now I'm like, what did I say for my third? Oh, customer service.
Customer service. Yeah.
This will be the hill I die on, Jeff.
Yeah.
So like I believe that as business owners, one of the things we can do for ourselves and for our clients is just deliver what you promise
Yeah.
on. Like just do your very best, and what you said you're going to do it. And
Mm.
if like something comes up or something changes, communicate that to people,
Yeah.
right? That's like such a good way. But I'm always looking for ways to like elevate the experience and like let my clients know that
Mhm.
they're, special, and I really appreciate them and things like that. So that's kind of like that's been like a real part of me since actually my grampy was really, really good at customer service, and I probably learned from him. But that's been like really, really important to me. And I think that's kind of those are the three factors I would say have made me
Well, and I
successful.
would say, I mean, I think the biggest thing about customer service is make them feel like, well, you've got to be in the game with them at the moment
Yeah.
instead of, okay, I'm handling 15 different things or
Yeah.
whatever. You are the most important thing to me right now. Boom, let's focus on that. So
Yeah.
that's awesome. Um, what, as you see as an expert in your field, what do you see as kind of the future from the communication standpoint for small businesses?
Well, right now AI is the hot topic.
Okay. Yep.
So let's just go there. I think that we are going to be using more of it because it's
Absolutely.
already ramping up like crazy. But I think it's important to remember that with AI and like where it's headed, it's still really a skill that you need to learn to
Hmm.
use. Like you can't just take what it says and copy and paste, right? It's
No.
really learning how to use those tools to make what you're doing even more impactful, learning to take your message and make it even better, right? So it's really the people I think that are able to take those tools and refine it and like know how to use them really well that I
Mhm.
think are going to start standing out a little bit. And that goes for business owners who use it for themselves and the copywriters or writers or content people that are using it as well.
Yeah, it's funny. I was driving back from the office this morning, and they were talking about on the business channel I was listening to, that I think it was Indeed. I can't think it was I think it was Indeed that they were talking about, and they were saying, what's the trend? Where is the world going in your world? And the lady who was on there, she said, I forget the term that she used, but basically what she implied is we're not hiring writers as much anymore as we are hiring content strategists.
Mhm. Yeah.
Where it's like people that are using AI to, build a strategy around. And I think a lot of what you're doing right now, where it's, okay, all right, I'm not just going to work on your blog, or I'm not just going to work on your website. We need to look at this as a whole,
Yeah,
your
it's a big
entire
picture.
approach to the community. Um, I think that's the way. I think you're ahead of the game in a lot of cases. What I think what you're doing is a lot of what happens with the big ad agencies and stuff like that, with the big brands where they have that consistent brand message. But most of us are a complete disaster area when it comes to small business and being consistent.
I always say I'm like part writer, part psychologist.
Yeah,
Not that that's not on paper, but because it's really helping people figure out who they are and
well,
like
it
find
is. Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah, well, and I mean, most of us are just we're fighting alligators all day long, and we don't have time to think about, okay, well, is my do am I even using the consistent, image on all my different
Mhm.
social media at this point? And does it, is it the same colors and the same brand, or was I off on a weird tangent over here and then forgot about it and then came back and I'm like, what the hell is that? Why did I put that on my social media? I put a book out that said I launched it a year ago, and I'm still working on it at this point. So I should have just put coming soon. It would have been easier.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what you got to do.
What's new for you? What's new in your world that you might want to share?
I think you'll like this. So something fun I started doing this year was I saw podcasters really having a need to get clear on who they're talking to. You did such an awesome job before you hit record. You told me exactly who I'm talking to. And as a
Yep.
guest, I love that because then I can speak directly to those people. Like I
Mhm.
understand what they're going through. So I am working with podcasters right now to help them like find their voice, right?
Mhm.
Like I get to do
Cool.
this for my writing clients all the time, but
Mhm.
podcasters need it too because we're literally projecting our message through our
Yeah.
voice. So I'm helping them find their voice and also connect their voice with other guests. So let's identify who is a good fit guest for or who's a good fit host for you to be a guest on their
Mhm.
show, and what do those topics look like, and how are you setting yourself apart in how you pitch them, right? Like I'm not sending the pitches for them. don't
Yeah.
don't get me wrong. But I'm helping them to
Yeah.
craft a pitch that is more than just the generic, like, hey, I just wrote this book and I'm getting ready to launch and now I want to come talk about it, because that is everybody. You know this as a
Exactly
podcast
right. Yeah.
host. Like the pitches we get, you're like, oh my gosh, they're all the exact same. So yes, so that's what I'm working on, and I'll also add like little elements depending on what they need. Like some people will get like the intro outro to their podcast and I will actually record it for them, so they'll get
Nice.
like, I'll help them pick out the music that goes with their personality, and it's been so much fun. Like I think I've done 5 of them and I'm just
Cool.
loving them. So I call these like my podcaster bundles. We
Yeah.
basically just like bundle up all the things that they need as a podcaster.
That is super cool. I love that.
Yeah,
Well, and I
me
mean,
too.
yeah, well, especially for people that, I mean, we sit here and sometimes talk to ourselves, sometimes we talk to others, and just having somebody that can say, all right, let me look at it from the outside and how you're
Mhm.
projecting yourself to the world and what you could do maybe a little bit different at
Yeah,
that point.
it's
I think
been
it's
a lot.
huge.
And
Okay.
I had a podcast that I
Mhm.
had that experience with. Like I really needed a regroup and I needed to like get clear on the direction I was going, and it launched me in a totally different direction.
Super cool.
So having those moments, I think, in your business and being able to have somebody take an outsider view, let's just say your life, honestly,
Mhm.
is so helpful.
Awesome. I love that. Well, let's transition into the fast 5 questions. Ready?
Okay, I'm ready.
All right. So, question number 1, you wake up in the morning, business is gone. You have $500 in your pocket, laptop, computer, place to live, food and clothing. What do you do first?
I thought about this question before we hopped on, and I think I would start like a organizing business. Like I would help people
Interesting.
like organize their lives, cuz like
Okay.
I only need $500 to do that. You know, if I need to
Yeah.
go to Michael's and get a couple bins or whatever, like some pretty pens and labeling things, I'm good. And
Yeah.
I think I could do it on that nice lean budget. So,
I
I think
like
that's
this.
what I would do. Obviously I'm
Good.
going to start another business. I'm not
Yeah. Yeah. It's what's wired into you. So, you're just going to do that. What's the biggest business mistake you've ever made?
Um the biggest business mistake I have made many times is to do what everybody else tells me I should do.
Sure.
And
Sure.
I've paid money for their advice. I've
Mhm.
taken their advice for free. I've read their advice in my social media comments, and I've thought that it meant I needed to do those things. So it can be hard, especially when you first start out,
Mhm.
because you think that everybody knows better than you and you're not really even clear on where you're going yet or like who you're working with. So I would say, like, to help yourself in that, I know these are supposed to be short, but to help yourself in that, like, find your loyal confidants and
Nice.
speak to the people that have your best interest at heart, like the people that are 100% supporting you no matter what. Those
Yeah.
are your people, and you don't have to listen to all that outside noise.
The funny thing that I have people who love me, and with books and stuff like that. I put the books out and I get great reviews and stuff like that. And there's always the jackass that has to give you a horrible bad
Yes.
review. But honestly, I've gotten some of the best stuff out of those people. I don't need you to tell me how great I am. Tell me what I really suck at and let me fix the really suck.
Yeah.
And there's one guy who's on a review service that I'm part of that if he picks up your book, it is just going to get decimated. But I get stuff out of that, and I stop getting mad at him and trying to figure out who he is and just listen to what he says, because a lot of times he catches just little nitpicky stuff that I know if I was reading I would be mad. I would say some of the stuff that he does, but don't be scared to go to somebody who might not give you the pat on the back. They may give you the punch in the face first and then the pat on the back later.
Yeah, you don't want everybody to make you feel better. You
Nope,
want some people
nope.
that are
They
just
aren't. They aren't going to
like, I
make
want
you.
the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If they, you don't want them to make you feel better, you want them to make you better at that
Yeah,
point. So don't
100%.
always go for the easy. What is a good book that you'd recommend for our audience?
So I thought of a writing book,
Okay.
but I was thinking of a book that people could use to start telling more stories in their business.
Cool. I
So
like this.
Kendra Hall, she's written 2 books on stories, but she wrote a book called Stories That Stick, and
Okay.
it's basically I think it's four stories that like every entrepreneur should tell in their business. And I
Okay.
think it's really helpful. I think we should all be telling more stories. That's like
Mhm.
another hill I'll die on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's an easy way to think about the stories that we tell.
I like that. Well, and having those kind of common stories that you should have kind of in your toolkit.
Yeah.
That is awesome. All right. What is a good tool that you use in your business that you might recommend?
I like you know what? I'm going to say how you and I met. For people who are looking to like get on more podcasts
Mhm.
or people who are looking for better guests on their podcast,
Mhm.
Podmatch, so amazing. I
Awesomeness.
love it.
Yeah. No, I mean,
Yeah.
I love it too. I mean, it helps you find podcasts that
Yeah.
there's no way on earth I would ever find them. I mean, some of them are kind of buried,
Yeah.
in the platforms and all that. And I mean, to be honest with you, I don't listen to a lot of podcasts because I follow the Gary Vaynerchuk rule of I create content, I don't consume it as
Mhm.
much. So, I spend a lot of time creating content, but yeah, it opens you up. I think it's cool. I mean, and I meet awesome people that I would have probably you and I would have probably never crossed paths.
Exactly. And you meet them from all over the world and
Yep.
all walks of life. And it just has changed my life.
Yeah.
Podcasting has changed my life. So,
Absolutely. I totally, so many people think, oh, well, I want to start a podcast and I'm going to make all this money and all that. Honestly, for me, the bonus plan is I do most of my podcasts on Tuesday or the recordings, and Tuesday afternoon is like my happy time
yeah.
because it's going to be the best day at work ever.
Yeah.
Most times. Now, sometimes you get somebody on the podcast and you're like, oh my God, it's been 10 minutes and I can't think of another question to ask them because they've answered everything with one word.
Yeah.
Um, but, I mean, as a general rule of thumb, almost everybody I interview on the show, I'm like, I want to get to be friends with this person for life.
I
Um, you
100%
know,
agree. Maybe we'll
it's
connect at the podcast festival in Texas. I know so many people in Texas, so I'm like, we all got to get
that
there.
we got to connect. Yeah, I didn't
Yeah.
even know there was one coming up. So that's
It's in
awesome.
August, so we're not going to enjoy the weather
Oh
at that
yeah,
time,
I was
I
gonna
don't
say
think, but
I'd much rather go to New Hampshire in August than be here in Texas. But we do have air conditioning, so that's important. We don't have to go outside much. Last question: what is your definition of freedom?
We talked about your Freedom Day
Mhm.
before we hit record. And I would say that when I woke up one Saturday morning and I did not have to go to my store and work,
Nice.
I got to experience my first taste of freedom in a very, very long time. Now I simply define it as like yesterday, I was able to like take a half day and just kind of spend the rest of the day doing a puzzle or playing cards with my husband. Like
Awesome.
that is freedom. Freedom is being able to make a decision that I can do things kind of on my own terms
Mhm.
when I'm very good about my word and I will always deliver on my promises. And I still feel very free to enjoy my life at the same
Yeah.
time.
I mean, that's what we started businesses for to begin with. That's what I for a while I didn't really realize that. And I've said it multiple times on this show, but the best thing that ever happened was COVID.
Yeah.
Because it took me from being a 70 to 80 hour a week workaholic, 7 days a week, 16-hour days to, you know what? This morning it snowed, and it snows in Texas about once a year. And it was ridiculous. I mean, for someone from New Hampshire, it's like, June. But we got up, we started to head towards the office. It was a little icy. I went, okay, we're turning around, going back home. And I mean, I still worked today, but I was able to work from home. I have the studio here. I can do all this stuff. So that's the beauty and the freedom of creating your own world and designing your
Yeah,
life.
agreed.
Awesome. Well, Emily, if somebody wants to learn more about you, maybe utilize your services, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
I would say come on over. And everything that all the ways to connect with me are on my website,
Nice.
emilyaborn.com. And I think it's good because then you can just connect where you like to connect. Like I
I,
don't want to tell you where you like to hang out. You decide where you like to hang out and let's hang out there.
I think that's phenomenal. Emily, you've been a joy to talk to today, and I hope this is the beginnings of a long friendship,
Same.
and getting to know you, because you're just fantastic. And I mean, there's people that just absolutely need what you have, and you're doing a fantastic job doing that for a lot of folks. So thank you for doing that, and thank you for being part of our community today.
Thank you, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
You are welcome. Folks, make sure you connect with Emily. Her information will be down in the show notes or in the show notes for those of you that are listening. Make sure you connect with her, find out a little bit about her. She is super cool. We had a great conversation before the podcast and can't wait for the next one. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. And we are putting out shows like madmen here, trying to get as many people tell their stories as we possibly can. So thanks a lot, and we will see you guys back here the very next time.